The courtroom lights blinded me as Judge Harrison reviewed the documents my own daughter-in-law had filed against me. Harper sat on the other side of the aisle, a barely concealed smirk playing on her lips, while her lawyer explained why I, Eleanor Vance, a businesswoman for 40 years, was no longer competent to manage my own life. My heart pounded so hard against my ribs, I thought everyone in that room could hear it. Dr. Julian Thorne, the psychologist she had brought in, nodded with every word, as if my destruction were merely a medical formality. But then, something changed. My granddaughter Lily, just 8 years old, stood up. Her voice trembled at first, but her words cut through the air like a knife. "Your Honor, I can show you something my mother does." The magistrate furrowed his brow, confused. Lily lifted a small device, her pink drawing tablet, and what appeared on the screen drained the color right out of Harper's face. The judge leaned forward, his expression transforming from curiosity to absolute horror. Then he said the words that would change everything. "Order the bailiff to lock the doors. Nobody leaves this courtroom." But to understand how we got to that moment, I must go back 6 months, to when everything began to fall apart. My husband James had died 4 years ago, leaving me a fashion manufacturing empire we built together from scratch. 3 factories, 2 commercial buildings in downtown Chicago, and enough money in the bank to live comfortably for the rest of my life. My son Ryan, Lily's father, had passed away in a car accident 2 years later, shattering my heart into pieces that had yet to fully heal. Harper, his widow, had stayed living in one of my properties with Lily. I thought it was the right thing to do, to keep my family together, to ensure my granddaughter grew up surrounded by love. How stupid I was. The first changes were subtle, so small I ignored them. Harper began making comments about my memory. "Eleanor, you already told me that story yesterday," she would say with a condescending little chuckle. "Oh, are you sure you took your vitamins? You seem a little foggy." At first, I attributed it to my age, to the sleepless nights after losing my son, but the observations became more frequent, more public. At Thanksgiving dinner, in front of my employees, even in front of Lily. "My mother-in-law is at that age, you know," she would say with fake concern. Sometimes she loses the thread of conversations. I felt every word like a slap in the face, but I swallowed my indignation. She was the mother of my granddaughter, the last connection to my dead son. I could not fight with her. I did not want Lily growing up in a hostile environment. Then Harper started with the suggestions. "Eleanor, don't you think it is time you rested? You have worked so hard all your life." She would arrive at my office without calling. She would look through documents on my desk with a familiarity that made me uncomfortable. "Let me help you with this. It looks complicated." Her hands touched my contracts, my bank statements, my business decisions. One afternoon, I found a folder in my study that I had not left there. Inside were power of attorney forms, documents that would give Harper total control over my bank accounts. "It is just a precaution," she explained when I confronted her, using that syrupy voice she had perfected. "If something happens to you, someone has to be able to handle things. You do not want Lily to be unprotected." The manipulation was so perfect, she almost convinced me. Almost, but something inside me, that same intuition that had driven me to build a successful business, screamed that something was terribly wrong. I began to notice other things. Harper coming home late, smelling of expensive cologne I had not seen her use before. There were calls she cut abruptly when I entered the room. She smiled, looking at her phone with an expression I had not seen in years, not since before my son died. One night, Lily stayed over at my house. I found her sitting on the sofa, hugging her pink tablet, with silent tears rolling down her cheeks. "Grandma," she whispered. "You hear it too when Mom talks to that man." My blood ran cold. "What man, sweetheart?" She shook her head, scared. "Mom says I shouldn't tell you anything. She says you are sick, and that they are going to take me away if I talk to you about grown-up things." I felt the floor disappear beneath my feet. "Lily, look at me. I am not sick. And nobody is going to take you away from me. Do you understand?" But the seed of doubt had already been planted in my own granddaughter. The next day, Harper showed up at my house with someone else. A tall man with a cold gaze who introduced himself as Julian Thorne, a clinical psychologist. "Eleanor, Julian is a very respected professional," Harper said with that smile that now made me nauseous. I thought he could help you with the stress, with the grief you still carry. Just an evaluation. Nothing invasive. I should have refused. I should have kicked him out of my house immediately. But Harper had played the perfect card. Do it for Lily. She needs to know her grandmother is okay. So I agreed to the evaluation. Julian asked me strange questions, designed to confuse me. He showed me images and asked me to recall them minutes later. He asked me dates, names, details that any person of 62 might occasionally forget. He took notes constantly, with a grave expression that made me feel as if every answer was evidence of my deterioration. "How much money do you have in the bank, Eleanor?" he asked at one point. The question caught me off guard. "What does that have to do with my mental health?" "Everything," he replied without looking up. The capacity to handle finances is a key indicator of cognitive competence. When he finished, he exchanged a look with Harper that lasted barely a second, but it said everything. They were accomplices. This was not an evaluation. It was an ambush. That night, I could not sleep. The pieces began to fit together in a terrifying way. The comments about my memory, the power of attorney documents, the psychologist. Harper was not worried about my well-being. Harper wanted my money. She wanted my properties. She wanted everything my husband and I had built with decades of work, and she was willing to declare me incompetent to get it. The next morning, I called Arthur, my accountant of 20 years. If anyone could help me understand what was happening with my finances, it was him. We met at a coffee shop far from my office, far from any place where Harper might appear. Arthur arrived with a thick folder under his arm and an expression that chilled my blood. "Eleanor, there are movements I do not like," he said, without even saying hello. He opened the folder and showed me bank statements I should have seen, but that never reached my hands. "Someone has been diverting your bank mail. I got these statements directly from the bank branch." I had to be quite insistent. My hands trembled as I reviewed the documents. Small transfers. Nothing big enough to alarm me if I had seen them individually. But added up over 6 months, they reached nearly $100,000. "Who has access to these accounts?" Arthur asked, though we both knew the answer. Only Harper had been close enough to my personal documents in the recent months. "There is more," Arthur continued, lowering his voice. 3 weeks ago, someone tried to add a name as a joint holder on your main account, the one with the $800,000 deposit. I felt the coffee rising in my throat. "Who?" "The bank rejected the request because your notarized signature was missing, but the name on the form was Harper Vance. My daughter-in-law had tried to rob me, not just manipulate me, not just control me, rob me directly. You need legal protection, Eleanor. This is no longer a family matter. It is fraud." Arthur pulled a business card from his wallet. "This lawyer specializes in cases of elder financial abuse. Her name is Catherine Sterling. She is tough as nails and afraid of no one." I took the card with shaking hands. The name was printed in black letters on a white background. Catherine Sterling, attorney at law, asset protection and family law. It was the first thread of hope I had felt in months. That same afternoon I called Catherine. Her voice on the phone was firm, professional, without a shred of pity. I liked that. I did not need compassion. I needed someone to fight. We met the next day at her office, a bright space on the 10th floor overlooking the city skyline I helped build with my factories. Catherine listened to my entire story without interrupting, taking occasional notes, her face growing more serious with every detail. "Eleanor, what is happening to you has a name," she said finally. "It is called elder financial exploitation, and your daughter-in-law is following the manual step by step." She opened her laptop and showed me a document. "First, they isolate you emotionally. They make you doubt yourself. Then they question your mental competence in front of others, creating a social record of your supposed incapacity. Then they bring in a corrupt professional, usually a doctor or psychologist, who fabricates evidence of cognitive decline. And finally, they file for a legal conservatorship, stripping you of all your rights." Every word was like a hammer hitting a nail. Harper had followed exactly that pattern. "Did the psychologist, Julian, give you a copy of his evaluation?" Catherine asked. I shook my head. "He never showed me anything. He just took notes, because he knows if you saw the report, you would have evidence of his fraud. He is going to write that you have dementia, severe cognitive decline, inability to make decisions, and Harper will use that report to petition for full control of your estate. Catherine leaned back in her chair, studying me with eyes that had seen too many stories like mine. Eleanor, I need you to understand something. This is not a simple family conflict. This is a war. And if we do not prepare properly, you are going to lose everything. Your money, your properties, your dignity, and most importantly, your relationship with Lily. The mention of my granddaughter broke me. The tears I had been holding back finally rolled down my cheeks. I cannot lose her. She is the only thing I have left of my son. You are not going to lose her, Catherine promised, but her tone was steel. But we have to be smarter than them. I need you to do exactly what I tell you, when I tell you. Can you do that? I nodded, wiping my tears. For the first time in months, I did not feel completely alone. Catherine laid out a plan. First, we needed our own psychological evaluation, with a legitimate and respected professional. Second, we had to document every interaction with Harper, every comment, every attempt at manipulation. Third, and this was crucial, we could not let Harper know we were building a case. She will accelerate her timeline if she feels threatened, Catherine warned. She can file for an emergency order, claiming you are a danger to yourself or Lily. I have seen cases where they managed to commit the victim to psychiatric facilities in less than 48 hours. The horror of that possibility paralyzed me. Locked up, medicated, voiceless, while Harper sold everything my husband and I built. How did I get here? I whispered, more to myself than to Catherine. I built an empire. I raised a son. I survived losing my husband and my child. How did I allow this to happen? Catherine leaned forward, her gaze piercing. Because you trusted? Because you loved? Because you are human? And now you are going to use that humanity to destroy their plan. I walked out of that office with a folder of instructions and a tiny voice recorder Catherine gave me. Record everything, she instructed me. Conversations, phone calls, any interaction. In this state, it is legal to record conversations in which you are a participant. The recorder was the size of a USB drive. I put it in the pocket of my beige blazer, feeling its weight like a secret shield. That night, Harper arrived at my house unannounced. Eleanor, we need to talk, she said, walking into my living room as if it were hers. She was carrying a folder, more documents. My pulse raced, but I remembered Catherine's words. I smiled, acting like the confused old woman Harper expected. Of course, dear. Would you like tea? I do not need tea, she replied with impatience. I need you to sign these papers. They are to update the beneficiaries on your insurance accounts and properties. Just boring legal paperwork, but important. I took the documents, pretending to read them with difficulty. In reality, I was reading them perfectly. They were property transfers, universal heir designations, documents that would give Harper everything if I died or was declared incompetent. The recorder in my pocket was on, capturing every word. This says that you would receive the house on Liberty Lane if something happens to me, I said with a trembling voice, acting confused. That house is worth almost $500,000. Exactly. Eleanor, it is to protect Lily, to ensure her future. Harper put her hand over mine, a caress that felt like claws. You want the best for your granddaughter, right? Of course, I whispered, then signed. Here, here, and here. She pointed to the lines with an expensive pen, pressing the document toward me. I took the pen, held it over the paper, and then let it drop. I am sorry, dear. I am very tired today. We can do this tomorrow. I saw the flash of frustration in Harper's eyes before she hid it behind another fake smile. Of course. Eleanor, rest. I will come back tomorrow. But we both knew that tomorrow I would have another excuse. And another. Because now I was playing her same game, and I had an ally she did not even know existed. The following days were a calculated hell. Harper intensified her campaign of destruction with a precision that terrified me. She no longer bothered to hide her disdain. She arrived at my house at strange hours. She went through my drawers, my documents, as if they were already hers. One morning I found her in my private study, sitting at my late husband's desk, talking on the phone. Yes, Julian, she is worsening rapidly. she was saying with a worried voice, acting for her invisible audience. Yesterday she asked me 3 times if she had eaten lunch. She did not recognize her own housekeeper. Every word was a perfectly constructed lie. I stood in the doorway, listening to how she fabricated my dementia. When she saw me, she showed not a shred of shame. "Eleanor, I was just talking about you with the doctor. He is very worried about your health." I squeezed the recorder in my pocket. Every lie was being recorded, every betrayal documented. But Catherine had warned me. Do not react. Let her get confident. Predators make mistakes when they believe they have already won. That afternoon, while I pretended to take a nap, I heard voices downstairs. I got up silently and peeked over the railing. Harper was with Julian. He had his arm around her waist, his lips on her neck. "Soon all this will be ours," he murmured. "The report is already done. I am declaring her incompetent in all aspects. She will not be able to manage a single dollar without your authorization." Harper laughed, a cruel sound I had never heard from her. "How long do you think the court process will take?" "With the right judge, 3 weeks. I have contacts in family court. Judge Harrison owes me favors. My daughter-in-law kissed that man in my own house, on the ashes of my son, planning to steal everything from me." The recorder captured every word, every laugh, every detail of their conspiracy. I backed into my room, heartbroken but with a mind clearer than ever. This was no longer just about money. It was about pure evil. The next day, Catherine secured my legitimate psychological evaluation. Dr. Bennett, a neuropsychologist with 30 years of experience, subjected me to exhaustive tests for 4 hours. He evaluated my memory, my reasoning, my ability to make complex decisions. "Mrs. Vance," he said at the end, taking off his glasses, "you are completely competent. Your cognitive function is excellent for any age, and superior to the average for someone of 62. Whoever says otherwise is lying deliberately." I wept with relief in his office. "Can you put that in writing?" "I already did, and I will be delighted to testify in court, if necessary." Catherine and I now had our first real weapon, scientific evidence that I was perfectly healthy. But we knew it would not be enough. Julian would present his fake report, and it would become my word against his. We needed something more, something irrefutable. The answer came from where I least expected it. Lily, my little granddaughter, started spending more time with me, sneaking out of her house when Harper went out with Julian. One afternoon I found her crying in the garden, hugging her pink tablet like it was a life preserver. "Grandma, is it true that you are sick in the head?" she asked with a broken voice. "Is it true you are going to forget me?" I knelt in front of her, ignoring the pain in my knees. "Lily, look at me. I am perfectly fine. Someone is telling lies about me, but they are just that, lies. Mom says soon they are going to take you to a special hospital. She says it is for your own good." Horror pierced through me. Harper was preparing Lily for my disappearance. When did she say that? Last night. She was talking to that man who always comes over, the one who says he is a doctor but kisses Mom when they think I do not see them. Lily lowered her eyes, ashamed. "I know it is wrong, Grandma. Dad died only 2 years ago. Mom shouldn't be with another man." I stroked her hair, trying to stay calm. "Lily, what else have you heard?" "A lot of things. That is why I started recording them." My heart stopped. Recording them. Lily held up her tablet, that pink device she always carried with her. "I have a drawing app that also records audio. I leave it on when they talk. At first I just wanted to understand why Mom was so mean to you, but then I heard things that scared me." With trembling hands, I took the tablet. Lily unlocked it and opened a hidden folder. There were dozens of audio files, some several minutes long, others over an hour. I pressed the first one. Harper's voice filled the garden. "Once they declare her incompetent, I am selling the factories immediately. That businessman is offering $2 million. I liquidate everything in 6 months." "And the old woman?" Julian asked. "There is a private facility on the outskirts. It costs $3,000 a month, but they keep her sedated and quiet. No one will visit her. In a year, she will not even remember her own name." They laughed. The two of them laughed, imagining my destruction. My hands shook so much I almost dropped the device. Lily hugged me, crying. "I am sorry, Grandma. I should have told you sooner. But I was afraid Mom would take away my tablet, and then I wouldn't have proof. No, sweetheart. You did exactly the right thing. I kissed her forehead, feeling something I had not felt in months. True hope. I need you to lend me this. There is a lawyer who has to hear these recordings. Are you going to protect me, Grandma? Mom said, if anyone found out what she is doing, she would send me to live with her sister in another state. I do not want to go. I want to stay with you. I promised her with every fiber of my being that I would not let that happen. That night I took the tablet directly to Catherine's office. She listened to file after file, her expression becoming harder with every recording. There was evidence of fraud, conspiracy, financial abuse, and most chilling, specific plans to institutionalize a competent person against her will. This is legal gold, Catherine said finally. But it is also dangerous. If Harper finds out we have this, she may become desperate. Desperate people do unpredictable things. What do you suggest? That they accelerate their process before she accelerates hers. We are going to file for an emergency asset protection order. We will freeze all your accounts so no one but you can access them. And we are going to file a lawsuit for attempted fraud against Harper and Julian. And Lily? I asked. My biggest fear. Lily will be protected. With these recordings, we can prove that Harper is an unfit mother. She plans to use her own daughter as a tool to commit a crime. No judge will leave a child in that environment. I signed every document Catherine put in front of me. Countersuit, protection order, temporary custody request. After months of being the victim, I was finally fighting back. But Harper was faster than we thought. 2 days later, when I returned from a meeting with Catherine, I found my house full of strangers. There was a police officer in my living room, 2 social workers checking my bedrooms, and Harper standing in the middle of it all, with fake tears rolling down her cheeks. Thank God you arrived, she sobbed when she saw me. She is getting worse. This morning she tried to go out in her nightgown. She did not know what day it was. She was completely disoriented. One of the social workers approached me with a clipboard. Mrs. Vance, I am from Adult Protective Services. We received a report that you may be in danger of harming yourself due to severe cognitive decline. I need to ask you some questions. I looked at Harper. She returned my gaze with a tiny, triumphant smile. She had played her strongest card, and if I did not answer perfectly to every question, they would take me from my own house. The hell had just intensified, and my daughter-in-law was enjoying every second. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Every word I said in the next few minutes could determine if I left my own house in an ambulance or handcuffed to a stretcher. The social worker looked at me with that expression I had learned to hate, pity mixed with condescension. Mrs. Vance, do you know what day it is today? He asked with a slow voice, as if speaking to a child. Thursday, March 22nd, I responded clearly. Do you know where you are? In my house. The house I bought with my husband 35 years ago on Maple Street, number 412. I saw the first crack in the social worker's confidence. His eyes moved toward Harper, who had stopped crying abruptly. Can you tell me the names of your close relatives? He continued. My husband was James Vance. He passed away 4 years ago from a heart attack. My son Ryan died 2 years ago in a car accident. My daughter-in-law is Harper Vance. I said her name with surgical precision. And my granddaughter is Lily Vance, 8 years old. Do you want me to tell you their dates of birth as well? The silence in the room was dense. I answered every question with perfect accuracy. I recited phone numbers, addresses, important dates. I explained my business in detail, mentioned the names of my 3 factory managers, the production figures for the last quarter. The social worker stopped writing and looked directly at me. Ma'am, you seem to be completely oriented and competent. Because I am, I replied firmly. And I would like to know who made the report that brought you here. Harper intervened quickly, her voice rising in pitch. I made the report. I am her family. I have the obligation to take care of her. This morning I found her in the garden, completely confused. I was watering my roses, I said calmly, as I do every morning at 7. I was wearing my robe because there was no reason to dress formally in my own garden. I turned to the police officer. Officer, is it illegal for a person to water their garden in comfortable clothes? The policeman coughed, clearly uncomfortable. No, ma'am. Then I would like to know with what legal authority you are on my private property, searching my rooms without my permission." The social worker exchanged looks with his partner. "Mrs. Vance, when we receive reports of vulnerable adults at risk, we have authority to investigate." "Vulnerable adults," I repeated, letting every word weigh heavily. "I am 62 years old. I manage 3 successful companies. I pay my taxes, and I just answered perfectly every one of your questions. In what part of that do you see vulnerability?" Harper was turning pale. Her plan was crumbling before her eyes. "She is acting now. Dr. Thorne has complete documentation of her deterioration." "Dr. Thorne?" I asked with feigned innocence. "You refer to Julian Thorne, the psychologist who has been having a romantic relationship with you while you plan to declare me incompetent to steal my estate?" The silence that followed was absolute. All heads turned toward Harper. "That is ridiculous," she screamed, but her voice shook. "She is paranoid. You are seeing exactly what I tell you." I took my phone out of my pocket. "I have recordings of you two planning exactly that. I have documentation of unauthorized transfers from my accounts. And I have a complete psychological evaluation from a certified neuropsychologist confirming that I am perfectly competent." I saw the exact moment when Harper understood she had lost. The color disappeared completely from her face. "Furthermore," I continued, looking directly at the social workers, "I have a lawyer waiting for my call. If you do not leave my property in the next 5 minutes, she will file charges for trespassing and harassment." The social worker put away his clipboard. "Mrs. Vance, it is clear that this report was malicious. I apologize for the intrusion. We are going to document that there is no basis for intervention." Harper exploded. "You cannot leave. She is sick. Julian has proof." "Then Mr. Thorne can present that proof in an appropriate legal proceeding," the social worker said coldly. "Good day." They all left, leaving me alone with Harper. My daughter-in-law looked at me with hatred so pure it made me take a step back. "This does not end here, Eleanor. You are going to regret having defied me." "No, Harper. I already regret having trusted you with my granddaughter. I already regret not seeing who you really were. But that is about to change." "Are you threatening me?" "I am warning you. Stay away from my money. Stay away from my properties. And if you know what is good for you, start behaving like a decent mother to Lily, because now I am paying attention." She left, slamming the door so hard it made the windows shake. As soon as her car left the driveway, my legs gave way. I collapsed onto the sofa, shaking from the adrenaline dump. I had won this battle, but the war was just beginning, and Harper had just made it clear she would not give up easily. I called Catherine immediately. "It worked," I told her. "The social workers left. But Harper is furious. She is going to do something drastic." "I know," Catherine replied, her voice tense. "That is why I need you to come to my office right now. I was just notified of something that changes everything." "What is it?" "Harper filed for an emergency conservatorship this morning, before calling social services. The judge already accepted the case. You have a hearing in family court in 5 days. They are going to decide if you are competent to manage your own life." The floor disappeared beneath my feet. 5 days. Only 5 days to prepare for the fight of my life. That night I could not sleep. I walked through my house, the house that had been my home for decades, wondering if in a week it would still be mine. I looked at photos of my husband, of my son, thinking of everything we had built together. Was I going to leave it all in the hands of a woman who only saw dollars where there should have been family? At 3 a.m, I heard a noise outside. I looked out the window and saw a small figure in my garden. Lily. It was raining lightly, and she was standing under the old oak tree, hugging her tablet. I ran out, wrapping her in a blanket. "Lily, what are you doing here? It is 3 a.m. "I snuck out," she sobbed. "Mom and that man were screaming. He said you ruined everything. Mom said she was going to get control back no matter what." "I was scared, Grandma." I brought her inside, made hot chocolate, tried to calm her shivering. "Does Mom know you are here?" "No." They drank wine and fell asleep. I climbed out my window. I hugged her, feeling her racing heart against my chest. This child had seen and heard too much for her age. She had been forced to grow up too fast, trapped between love for her grandmother and loyalty to her mother. Lily, I need to ask you something important. Will you testify in court next week? Are you willing to show the judge what you recorded on your tablet? She nodded, wiping her tears. Yes, because what they are doing is wrong. Dad wouldn't want this. He loved Mom, but she changed after he died. She became mean. Your dad would be very proud of your bravery, I told her, kissing her forehead. But inside, my heart was breaking. An 8-year-old girl should not be in the middle of this war. The following days were a whirlwind of preparation. Catherine trained me as if it were for a boxing match. She made me practice answers, maintain calm, project competence in every word and gesture. Harper is going to bring witnesses, she warned me. People who will say they saw you confused, forgetful, incapable. Julian will present his fake report. They will do everything possible to paint you as a senile old woman. And us? We have the truth. We have your real evaluation. We have evidence of fraud. And we have Lily's recordings. My granddaughter's name made me shudder. Catherine, do we have to put her on the stand? She is so small. It may be our only option. Her recordings are direct evidence of conspiracy. No judge can ignore that. The night before the hearing, Lily stayed with me. We had dinner together. We watched her favorite movie. I tried to give her a moment of normalcy before the storm. When I tucked her into bed, she grabbed my hand. Grandma, we are going to win tomorrow. I wanted to tell her yes, promise her everything would turn out well. But I had learned that empty promises do more damage than the truth. We are going to fight with everything we have, I told her. And whatever happens, you will always be my granddaughter. No one can take that away from me. She smiled, squeezing my hand. I won't let them take anything from you either, Grandma. Tomorrow, everyone is going to see the truth. I stayed awake all night, staring at the ceiling, preparing for the day that would decide my fate, and praying that justice actually existed in that courthouse. The family court smelled of old paper and life-changing decisions. I sat at the defense table, with Catherine by my side, feeling the weight of every gaze in the room. Harper was on the other side, dressed in a dark gray suit that made her look respectable, professional, concerned. What a good actress she was. Julian was sitting in the witness row, with his leather briefcase and that expression of medical authority he had perfected. Judge Harrison entered, and my stomach sank. It was the same name Julian had mentioned in the recordings, the judge who owed him favors. Catherine squeezed my hand under the table. She had noticed it too. We were in enemy territory from the start. Case number 743, the clerk announced. Harper Vance versus Eleanor Vance. Petition for conservatorship due to mental incapacity. Harper's lawyer stood up, a heavy-set man with a deep voice that filled the room. Your Honor, we present clear evidence that Mrs. Eleanor Vance suffers from severe cognitive decline that renders her incapable of administering her considerable estate. We have testimonies, professional evaluations, and documentation of erratic behaviors that put at risk not only her finances but her own safety. Proceed, Judge Harrison said, with a tone that already sounded like a decided verdict. They called their first witness, a woman I recognized vaguely from the neighborhood pharmacy. Do you know Mrs. Vance? The lawyer asked. Yes. She comes to the pharmacy frequently. Have you noticed anything unusual in her behavior lately? The woman nodded, avoiding my gaze. A month ago, she came 3 times in one day, asking for the same medication. She seemed not to remember that she had already bought it. She was very confused. It was a lie, a complete lie. I had been to that pharmacy only once that month, but she was testifying under oath, and her word carried weight. Catherine rose for cross-examination. Do you have records of those supposed 3 visits in one day? The woman hesitated. The records from that day were lost in a system update. How convenient, Catherine murmured. No further questions. They brought more witnesses. A neighbor who claimed to have seen me wandering in a robe at 3 in the afternoon. A bank employee who claimed I had tried to withdraw money but did not remember my PIN. Each one a carefully constructed lie, impossible to refute completely without absolute proof. Harper had prepared them well, or, more specifically, she had paid them well. Then they called Julian. He walked to the stand with that arrogant confidence of someone who believes they have already won. He swore to tell the truth with a hand on the Bible, and I felt nauseous at the irony. Dr. Thorne, you evaluated Mrs. Eleanor Vance. Can you share your conclusions? Julian opened a thick folder, full of papers he had never shown me. I performed an exhaustive evaluation of 4 hours. Mrs. Vance showed clear signs of early to moderate stage dementia. She forgot basic information I had just given her, could not complete simple memory tasks, and showed temporal disorientation. Every word was poison disguised as science. Do you consider her capable of handling complex financial decisions? Absolutely not. In my professional opinion, Mrs. Vance requires constant supervision and a legal guardian to handle all her financial and personal affairs. Harper's lawyer smiled. And who do you recommend for that role? Someone from the immediate family, someone who already knows her situation. Mrs. Harper Vance would be the most appropriate option. Everything was orchestrated. Every question, every answer, building a narrative of my incompetence. Judge Harrison took notes, nodding occasionally. It was a judicial farce, and I was trapped in the center. Catherine stood up for cross-examination, and I saw steel in her eyes. Dr. Thorne, how much is Mrs. Vance paying you for your testimony? Objection, shouted Harper's lawyer. The question is inappropriate. I will rephrase, Catherine said softly. Dr. Thorne, have you received any financial compensation from Mrs. Vance aside from your professional fees? Julian shifted uncomfortably. Only my standard fees, $1,500 for a 4-hour evaluation? Interesting. I have here your fee schedule published on your website. You charge $300 for standard evaluations. Why 5 times more in this case? This was a complex case that required extensive analysis. Or perhaps Catherine walked toward him with a document in her hand. It was because you had to fabricate specific results. Dr. Thorne, do you maintain a romantic relationship with Mrs. Harper Vance? The courtroom exploded. Harper stood up screaming. Her lawyer was calling for order. The judge was banging the gavel. Julian was completely pale. That is irrelevant to my professional evaluation. Is it? Catherine placed a photo on the judge's bench. It was Julian kissing Harper in a hotel parking lot. This photo was taken 2 weeks ago. Do you consider it ethical to perform a psychological evaluation of your lover's mother-in-law and then recommend that she obtain total control of the estate? Objection. The attorney is defaming my client. Judge Harrison looked at the photo, and for the first time I saw uncertainty in his face. Objection overruled. I want to hear the answer. Julian stammered, looking for words. My personal relationship does not affect my professional judgment. So you do not deny the relationship, Catherine pressed. Dr. Thorne, is it not true that you and Mrs. Vance have been planning to declare Mrs. Eleanor incompetent to obtain control of her estate valued at more than $4 million? That is absurd. Is it? Your Honor, I request to present additional evidence. Catherine connected a laptop to the courtroom screen. My heart beat so fast I thought everyone could hear it. This was the moment. Everything depended on this. This is an audio recording obtained legally, where Dr. Thorne and Mrs. Vance discussed their plan. Harper's voice filled the courtroom. Once they declare her incompetent, I am selling the factories immediately. That Chinese businessman is offering $2 million. Julian's voice replied. And the old woman? There is a private facility on the outskirts. It costs $3,000 a month, but they keep her sedated and quiet. The silence that followed was like the vacuum after an explosion. Everyone in that room had just heard the naked and cruel truth. Harper had stood up, hands over her mouth. Julian looked about to vomit. Judge Harrison looked at the screen with an expression of absolute horror. Catherine pressed play on another file. This time it was a more recent conversation. Judge Harrison owes me favors. With him on the bench, this is a done deal. The judge turned red. His reputation had just been dragged through the mud in front of a room full of people. Who recorded this? He asked with a tense voice. Catherine took a deep breath. I request to call an additional witness. Lily Vance. Harper's lawyer exploded. Your Honor, she is an 8-year-old girl. She cannot testify against her own mother. She can and she will, said Judge Harrison, and there was ice in his voice. I want to hear everything. The doors at the back opened, and Lily walked in, walking slowly, hugging her pink tablet against her chest. She looked so small, so scared, but there was determination in her eyes. Harper ran toward her. Lily, you do not have to do this. Let's go home, baby. Lily stepped back, moving away from her mother. I do not want to go home with you. Not anymore. The words hit Harper like a physical slap. She staggered, with real tears for the first time in this whole process. Lily, I am your mother. You are a liar, Lily said with a trembling but clear voice. And you hurt Grandma. I heard everything you planned to do. Judge Harrison indicated to Lily to approach. Child, did you make these recordings? Lily nodded. Yes, sir, with my tablet. It has an app that records while I draw. I started recording because Mom and that man always talked about bad things about my grandmother, and I wanted to know the truth. How many recordings do you have? 37, Lily replied with childlike precision. From 4 months ago, all are saved here. She held up the tablet. The judge looked at Harper, then at Julian, then at me. I saw the exact moment he made his decision. Bailiff, he said with a cutting voice, lock the doors of this courtroom. No one leaves until I finish reviewing every one of those recordings. Harper tried to run toward the door, but 2 officers blocked her. Her mask of a concerned mother finally broke completely. You do not understand. She has millions, millions that should be mine. My husband was her son. I deserve that inheritance. Your husband was alive 2 years ago, the judge said coldly. Mrs. Eleanor Vance is alive now. There is no inheritance to claim. She is old. She does not need all that money. I am young. I have a life ahead of me. Every word was more evidence of her greed, her malice, her complete lack of humanity. Julian tried to slip toward the side door, but the officers stopped him too. Judge Harrison connected Lily's tablet and began playing file after file, each one more condemning than the last. Detailed plans of fraud, discussions about how to drug me, conversations about selling my properties before I could react. And the worst? Laughter. Laughter while they planned to destroy my life. Judge Harrison listened for more than 2 hours. Each recording was a devastating blow to Harper's defense. In one, she and Julian discussed exactly how to forge my signature on transfer documents. In another, they planned to spike my coffee with sedatives so I would appear confused during social worker visits. There was a particularly chilling recording where Harper told Julian, if she resists too much, we have to consider other options. An accident, a fall down the stairs. She is old. Nobody would suspect anything. I looked at my daughter-in-law when those words filled the room. She had planned to kill me. Not just rob me, not just lock me up. If her plan did not work, she was willing to murder me for my money. Lily cried silently in the witness chair. A social worker had approached to comfort her, but the girl refused to take her eyes off her mother, as if she needed to understand how the woman who gave her life could be capable of such evil. When the last recording finished, the silence in the courtroom was sepulchral. Judge Harrison took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes, as if he wanted to erase from his memory what he had just heard. In my 25 years as a judge, he said finally with a grave voice, I have never witnessed a conspiracy so calculated, so vile, so completely devoid of humanity. He turned to Harper. Mrs. Vance, you came to my court claiming to protect a vulnerable woman. In reality, you are the predator. You are the danger. Harper had stopped crying. Now she just stared ahead with empty eyes, as if her brain had finally processed that she had lost everything. Dr. Thorne, continued the judge, you violated every ethical code of your profession. You fabricated medical evidence to facilitate a crime. You conspired to deprive a competent person of her fundamental rights. And you had the audacity to sit in my court and swear to tell the truth. Julian had his hands cuffed now. An officer had secured him when he tried to escape during one of the most incriminating recordings. Mrs. Eleanor Vance, the judge looked directly at me. I owe you an apology on behalf of this judicial system. You were the victim of a criminal conspiracy that almost succeeded due to prejudices about age and competence. I want you to know that the petition for conservatorship is dismissed completely. I felt Catherine squeeze my hand, I had won. After months of terror, manipulation, and gaslighting, finally someone with authority had heard the truth. Furthermore, continued the judge, I am ordering a full criminal investigation against Mrs. Vance and Mr. Thorne for conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted false imprisonment, forgery of documents, and death threats. He turned to the district attorney, who had been called halfway through the recordings. I want charges filed immediately. Yes, Your Honor, replied the DA. Harper finally reacted. No, this cannot be happening. Lily, tell the judge this is a misunderstanding. Tell him Grandma manipulated us. Lily raised her head, wiping her tears. I am not going to lie for you anymore, Mom. I am not afraid anymore. Those words, spoken with the broken voice of an 8-year-old girl who had been forced to grow up too fast, were more damning than any legal evidence. The judge called the social worker. I want a full evaluation of the well-being of the minor Lily Vance. Until it is completed, I grant temporary emergency custody to Mrs. Eleanor Vance. My heart leaped. Lily ran from the witness chair straight into my arms. I hugged her tight while she sobbed against my chest. It is over, my love. It is over, I whispered, though I knew the emotional wounds of this would take years to heal. Harper was screaming now, completely out of control. You cannot take my daughter. She is mine. Eleanor is stealing everything from me. You tried to steal everything from her first, said the judge coldly. And what is worse, you used your own daughter as a tool in your criminal scheme. No judge in this country will return custody to you after what we have heard today. 2 officers escorted Harper out of the room while she continued shouting threats, curses, incoherent accusations. Julian went behind her, silent, defeated, knowing his career and freedom had ended. When the doors closed behind them, I could finally breathe, really breathe for the first time in months. Catherine hugged me, something completely improper for a lawyer in court, but nobody cared. You did it, she whispered. You fought and you won. We did it, I corrected her. You, me, Lily. We all fought. The judge asked us to stay while he drafted the official orders. Lily would not let go of me, as if she were afraid someone would come to separate her from me if she let go. Grandma, she said with a small voice, am I going to have to see Mom again? Not if you do not want to, my love. And when you are older, if you decide you want to see her, it will be your decision. But right now you are going to be safe with me. I am going to live at your house. At our house, I corrected her. Your room is already waiting for you. The one we painted lavender last year. Remember? She nodded, a small smile appearing for the first time on her tear-streaked face. The district attorney approached us before leaving. Mrs. Vance, we are going to need your testimony for the criminal case. The recordings are solid evidence, but your perspective as a victim will be crucial. I will be available whenever you need me, I promised. I want to make sure Harper and Julian face full consequences for what they did. They will, he assured me. With this evidence, we are looking at possibly 5 to 10 years in prison for both. We left the courthouse 3 hours later. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky orange and pink. Lily walked between Catherine and me, holding our hands. On the courthouse steps, there was a group of reporters. Someone had leaked the story. Mrs. Vance, how do you feel after discovering your daughter-in-law planned to rob you? Shouted a reporter. I stopped, considering ignoring them. But then I thought of all the other older people who might be going through the same thing in silence, not knowing they had options, not knowing they could fight. I feel relieved, I said clearly. And I want anyone who is being manipulated by family members to know that they are not crazy, they are not alone, and they do not have to accept the abuse. There is help available, there are laws that protect us, and there is justice, even when it seems impossible. What would you say to your daughter-in-law now? Asked another reporter. I would tell her that I hope she uses her time in prison to reflect on how money corrupted her so much that she was willing to destroy her own family, and that when she gets out, I hope she is a better person than she is today. Catherine guided us toward her car, away from the cameras and microphones. On the way home, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted by the emotional trauma of the day. I looked at her in the rearview mirror, her face finally peaceful in sleep. She is going to need therapy, Catherine said softly. Probably for years. What she witnessed, what she had to do today, No child should carry that. I know. I already hired a child psychologist specializing in trauma. Lily starts sessions next week. And you? Asked Catherine. I am also going to need help, right? Catherine nodded. What you went through was systematic psychological abuse. Gaslighting, manipulation, implicit and explicit threats. It is going to take time to process all that. I will do it, I promised. Because I want to be whole and healthy for Lily. She deserves a grandmother who can give her stability, not someone broken by what Harper did. We arrived at my house when night had fallen completely. I carried the sleeping Lily to her room, laid her down gently, took off her shoes. She murmured something in her sleep and curled up with her old teddy bear, the one my son had given her before he died. I sat on the edge of her bed, watching her sleep, and finally let out all the emotions I had been holding back. I cried for the months of terror. I cried for the betrayal. I cried for my son, who had loved a woman capable of such cruelty. I cried for Lily, who had lost the innocence of her childhood too soon. But I also cried with relief, because I had survived, I had fought, and I had won. Catherine found me like that when I went downstairs, sitting in my living room with 2 cups of hot tea. You needed that, she said simply. I needed many things. Crying was one of them. We sat in silence for a moment, drinking tea, letting the peace of victory settle over us. What comes next? I asked finally. Now you rebuild your life. You restore your peace. You enjoy your granddaughter without Harper's poison contaminating every moment. And you continue being the strong woman who built an empire and refused to let herself be destroyed. I smiled, feeling something I had not felt in almost a year. Real hope. Sounds like a good plan. It is the best plan, agreed Catherine. That night, after Catherine left, I walked through my house, every room, every corner, reclaiming my space. There was no longer a threat lurking. There was no longer a conspiracy unfolding in the shadows. For the first time in months, my house felt like a home again. The following weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, interviews with social workers, and slowly, the reconstruction of a life that had been on the verge of collapse. Arthur, my faithful accountant, worked tirelessly to track every cent Harper had stolen. The total came to $143,000, transferred to ghost accounts she had opened with forged documents. Everything is documented, Arthur informed me in a meeting at my office. The prosecutor has enough evidence to add charges of aggravated theft and forgery. We are looking at least 8 years in prison for her. 8 years. Lily would be 16 when her mother got out. Almost an adult. The childhood she should have spent with her mother had evaporated due to greed. The temporary custody became permanent after 3 exhaustive evaluations. Every professional reached the same conclusion. Lily was better off with me. She had blossomed in the weeks since the beginning, her nightmares decreasing, her smile returning slowly. I converted my study into a playroom for her, full of art, books, and that pink tablet that had been our salvation. The child psychologist, Dr. Emily Carter, called me after the 5th session with Lily. Eleanor, your granddaughter is resilient, but she is also carrying a lot of guilt. Guilt? Why? She feels she betrayed her mother by recording those conversations. Part of her still loves Harper, and that confuses her. She needs to know it is okay to love someone who hurt you, while also protecting yourself from them. That night I spoke with Lily while we had dinner. I had made her favorite meal, pasta with homemade tomato sauce, her father's recipe. Lily, Dr. Carter told me you feel bad about what happened with your mom. She lowered her fork, looking at her plate. It's just, she is my mom. I am supposed to love her, right? Love does not disappear just because someone hurts us, I told her gently. Your mom did terrible things. That is a fact. But she also took care of you when you were a baby, taught you to walk, was there in good moments. You can remember those good things, while also recognizing that what she did was wrong. Do you hate her? Lily asked with a small voice. I thought about it honestly. I do not hate her. I am angry, hurt, betrayed. But hate requires too much energy, and I prefer to use that energy on the 2 of us. Lily nodded, processing. Do you think someday I can see her? When you are older, if you want, we can consider supervised visits, but only if you want, and only when you are ready. No one is going to force you. "I am not ready now," she said firmly. "She still scares me." "Then we won't do it until you are ready. And maybe you will never be ready, and that is also okay." I hugged her, feeling her little arms around my neck. This girl had saved my life with her bravery. Now it was my turn to save hers, giving her the safe childhood she deserved. The criminal trial of Harper and Julian began 3 months after the disaster in family court. Catherine accompanied me every day. Lily stayed with Dr. Carter during the sessions, protected from having to relive the trauma publicly. The prosecutor presented the recordings, the forged documents, the testimonies of financial experts. The evidence was so overwhelming that Harper's defense attorney basically gave up halfway through the trial. Julian accepted a plea deal, testifying against Harper in exchange for a reduced sentence. On the stand, he admitted everything: the plan, the fake evaluations, even revealing it was not the first time he had done it. "I have facilitated 3 fraudulent conservatorships in the last 5 years, he confessed, his voice monotone. Families who wanted the money of their parents or elderly grandparents. I provided them with the false medical documentation they needed. They paid me between $5,000 and $10,000 per case." The room went into shock. We were not the only victims. There were other families destroyed by this man. The prosecutor promised to investigate every case. When it was Harper's turn to testify, she refused. She sat in silence, staring ahead, as if none of this were real. Her lawyer presented a weak defense about financial stress and Julian's bad influence, but no one believed it. The jury deliberated barely 2 hours, guilty on all charges. The sentencing came a week later. The judge, a different one than Harrison, who had recused himself from all related cases, was relentless. "Mrs. Vance, you conspired to destroy a woman who welcomed you as family after the death of your husband. You used your own daughter as a tool. You planned theft, fraud, false imprisonment, and even discussed homicide. This court cannot show mercy before such depravity." 10 years in prison. Julian received 6 years for his cooperation. I watched them handcuff Harper and take her out of the room. She looked at me one last time, and in her eyes I saw something that could have been regret, or perhaps just fury at having been caught. I would never know for sure. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded me again. This time I was prepared. "Justice was done today," I said clearly. "But I want this to be a warning. Financial abuse of the elderly is more common than people think. It happens in families that seem normal. The predators can be your own children, your grandchildren, people you trust completely." "What advice would you give to others in a similar situation?" asked a reporter. "Document everything. Seek legal help immediately. Do not let yourself be convinced that you are crazy or confused. And above all, do not be afraid to defend yourself, no matter who the aggressor is." When we finally got home, Lily was waiting on the porch with Dr. Carter. "Is it all over, Grandma?" she asked anxiously. "It is over, my love. Your mom will be in prison for a long time. She cannot hurt us anymore." Lily nodded, her expression a complex mix of sadness and relief that broke my heart. That night, the 3 of us had dinner together: Lily, Dr. Carter, and I. We talked about normal, trivial, wonderfully boring things: school plans, art projects, adopting a cat Lily had wanted for weeks. Normalcy was a precious gift after months of nightmare. The months turned into a year. Life took on a rhythm I never thought I would experience again. Predictable, peaceful, full of small moments that built a beautiful existence. Lily thrived in ways that left me breathless. Her grades improved dramatically. She joined the art club at school and won a contest with a painting of the 2 of us in the garden, under the old oak tree. I hung it in the place of honor in my office, where all my clients and partners could see it. My business also flourished. With a clear head and a heart at peace, I took decisions I had been postponing for years. I expanded one of the factories, hired new designers, launched a line of sustainable fabrics that became an immediate success. Arthur congratulated me constantly. "Eleanor, you are in your prime. It is like you have been reborn." And in a way, I was. I had faced my total destruction, and I had survived. That changes you. It makes you stronger, braver, more aware of your own worth. One afternoon, while I was reviewing financial statements in my office, Lily came in with her school backpack. "Grandma, today the teacher asked us to write about our hero." I smiled, expecting her to talk to me about some historical figure or character from her favorite books. "And who did you write about?" "About you." She handed me a sheet of paper with her careful handwriting. I began to read, and the tears came before finishing the first paragraph. "My grandmother Eleanor is my hero because when everyone thought she was weak, she showed she was the strongest. When someone bad tried to steal everything from her, she fought and won. She taught me that being brave does not mean not being afraid. It means doing the right thing even if you are afraid. She saved me, and I tried to save her too. We are a team." I hugged her tight, this extraordinary child who had grown up too fast but remained pure goodness at her core. "You are also my hero, Lily. You know that, right?" She nodded against my shoulder. "I know. Dr. Carter says we saved each other. She says that is what real love does." Dr. Carter had worked miracles with Lily. The nightmares had ceased completely. The girl no longer startled when the phone rang or someone knocked on the door. She had recovered her stolen childhood, one day at a time. She also insisted that I continue my own therapy. "Trauma does not disappear just because you won in court," she reminded me. "You need to process it properly." She was right. There were nights where I woke up sweating, dreaming that Harper had escaped from prison and was coming for us. There were moments where I heard her voice in my head, those poisonous lies about my incompetence. But with every therapy session, those voices became weaker. One day, Catherine called me with news. "Remember what Julian confessed about other cases of fraudulent conservatorship?" "Yes, they said they would investigate." They did. They found 4 additional families where he fabricated fake evaluations. 2 of the victims had already been declared incompetent and lost control of their estates. Thanks to your case, they are reopening all those files. I felt a deep satisfaction. Our hell at least had served to help others. The victims will recover their rights. They are in the process, and 3 of them want to meet you. They say your story gave them the courage to fight. A week later, I met with them at a coffee shop. 3 women, all over 60, all with heartbreaking stories of children, nephews, or stepchildren who tried to steal everything from them. We shared our experiences. We cried together. We laughed at the absurdity of having survived attempts at destruction by our own families. One of them, Evelyn, had temporarily lost her house before the fraud was discovered. "I lived in a shelter for 3 months, she told me. "My own son put me there while he sold my properties. But now he is in prison, and I got everything back. Even the relationship with my grandchildren, who did not know what their father was doing. We became an informal support group. We met monthly, shared legal resources, recommended lawyers, and therapists. We called the group Silver Voices because we refused to be silenced by our age. For the 2nd anniversary of the trial, we organized a public conference on elder financial abuse. We invited lawyers, social workers, police officers. We shared our stories without shame, without hiding the horrible details. The room was full. There were older people who recognized the signs in their own lives. There were worried families who wanted to protect their parents. There were legal professionals looking to better understand this hidden crime. Lily came with me that day. She was 10 years old now, taller, more sure of herself. When I asked her to share her perspective as a child trapped in the middle of family fraud, she went up on stage without fear. "I loved my mom. She began with a clear voice, but she did something terrible, and I had to choose between protecting her or doing the right thing. I chose the right thing, and it was the hardest decision of my life, but it saved my grandmother, and eventually it saved me too." There was not a dry eye in that room. After the conference, dozens of people approached to thank us, to ask for advice, to share their own stories of suspicion or fear. We handed out hundreds of cards with resources, legal aid numbers, information on how to document financial abuse. An elderly woman approached me, shaking. "My son is doing exactly what your daughter-in-law did to you," she whispered. "He tells me I am confused. He takes my mail. He brought a doctor who says I need supervision." I thought I was going crazy. I grabbed her hands. "You are not crazy. You are being manipulated. And right now we are going to connect you with a lawyer who can help you." Catherine was there. And in 15 minutes, that woman had an appointment and a plan of action. Saving one life at a time, that was what we could do. turning our trauma into purpose. That night, Lily and I sat in the garden under the stars. She had grown so much in 2 years. She was no longer the scared girl with a pink tablet, hiding from terrifying conversations. "Grandma, do you think Mom will ever understand that what she did was wrong?" she asked, looking at the sky. "I do not know, my love. Sometimes people change in prison, sometimes they do not. But that is no longer our responsibility. Our responsibility is to be happy, stay healthy, and help others when we can. Do you think Dad would be proud of us?" The question broke my heart in the sweetest way. "Your dad would be incredibly proud of you, of your bravery, your kindness, your strength. And I think he would understand why I had to stop your mom, even if it meant sending her to prison." Lily curled up against me. "I love you, Grandma. Thank you for fighting for us. I will always fight for us," I promised, kissing her head. "Always." Catherine remained our lawyer and had become a close friend. She had dinner with us regularly. She helped Lily with school projects. She became part of our chosen family. One night she confessed something to me while Lily slept upstairs. "You know, your case changed my career completely. Now I specialize exclusively in protecting older people from family financial abuse. Thanks to you, I have helped 17 clients in 2 years. Thanks to you, I have my life and my granddaughter," I replied. "We are a good team." We toasted with red wine, celebrating victories big and small. 3 years after the trial, I received a letter from the prison. The sender was Harper. My first instinct was to throw it away without opening it, but something stopped me. Lily was at school. I sat in my study with a cup of hot tea and finally tore open the envelope. The letter was short, written with shaky handwriting I barely recognized. "Eleanor, I do not expect your forgiveness. I do not deserve it. But I need you to know that I finally understand what I did. The mandatory therapy here has forced me to confront who I became after Ryan died. Greed consumed me. I saw your money and forgot your humanity. I forgot you were the grandmother of my daughter, the mother of the man I loved. I turned you into an obstacle instead of a person. I have lost everything: my freedom, my daughter, my dignity. And the worst is that I deserve it completely. I am not writing to seek compassion. I just wanted you to know that Lily is right not to want to see me. She is a better mother to herself by staying away from me. Take care of her. I know you will do it better than I ever could. Harper." I read the letter 3 times, looking for hidden manipulation, some angle I had learned to recognize. But I only found genuine pain and late regret. I did not forgive her. Perhaps I never would. But something inside me loosened, a tension I did not know I was still carrying. That night I showed the letter to Lily. She was 11 now, on that fragile threshold between childhood and adolescence. She read it in silence, her eyes moving slowly over every word. "What do you think?" I asked gently. "I think she is sad, and that she should be." Lily folded the letter carefully. "But I am not ready to answer her. Maybe someday, maybe never. Does that make me a bad person?" "It makes you a person with healthy boundaries," I assured her. "Forgiveness is not something you owe anyone. It is something you give when and if you are ready, only if it makes you feel better." Lily nodded, putting the letter in her drawer. "Maybe when I am 18, when I am an adult and can decide without anyone pressuring me." "That is a perfect plan," I agreed. My business reached new heights. The factories now employed more than 300 people. The sustainable line expanded internationally. I was asked to give talks at universities about female entrepreneurship and business resilience. In one of those conferences, a young student asked me, "Mrs. Vance, after everything that happened, how do people trust again?" It was a question I had been asked dozens of times. "Trust is not something you give blindly," I replied. "It is something you build with consistent evidence of integrity." Harper taught me to be more careful, but I refused to let her make me cynical. I still believe most people are good. I simply verify before handing over the keys to my life. The Silver Voices group grew to over 50 members. We established a legal fund to help older people without resources fight financial abuse. Catherine donated pro bono hours. I funded cases that seemed impossible. We saved families, restored estates, put criminals in prison. Every victory felt like honoring the hell we had survived. Lily became a youth spokesperson for the group. She spoke in schools about warning signs of family abuse, about the importance of listening when something feels wrong, about having the courage to speak up even when it is terrifying. The transformation of that scared girl into this confident and compassionate young woman was my greatest achievement, more than any business empire. For her 12th birthday, I gave her something special, a savings account in her name with $50,000. "This money is yours," I explained, "for your education, for your dreams, for whatever you need. But it comes with a condition." "Which one?" she asked curiously. "That you learn to handle it wisely, that you understand the value of money without letting it define you, that you use resources to build, not to destroy. Because money is a tool, Lily. In the right hands, it builds lives. In the wrong hands, it destroys them." She understood the deeper lesson behind the gift. Like with Mom, money made her mean because she let it be more important than people. Exactly, and you are already wiser at 12 than she was at 35. 5 years after the trial, Julian was released on parole for good behavior. Catherine called me immediately. "He is out. I thought you should know." I felt a chill of ancient fear, but it dissipated quickly. "Does he represent any threat?" "No. He lost his license permanently. He is working in a warehouse, under strict supervision. One wrong step and he goes back to prison." "Then he is no longer my problem," I said firmly. And it was true. The power Julian once held over me had evaporated completely. He was just a pathetic man who ruined his life out of greed. Harper still had 5 more years of her sentence. Lily had decided that when she turned 18, she would consider a supervised visit, but only a conversation, not a relationship. "I need to close that chapter properly," she explained to me. "But on my terms, when I am ready, with clear boundaries." Her maturity amazed me constantly. On the 7th anniversary of the day of the trial, the day Lily saved me with her childhood bravery, we organized a celebration, not of the trauma, but of survival. We invited all the people who helped us: Catherine, Arthur, Dr. Carter, Dr. Bennett, who did my real evaluation, members of Silver Voices, even the prosecutor who handled the criminal case. Catherine raised her glass for a toast to Eleanor, who refused to be a victim, to Lily, who had the courage to do the right thing, and to all of us who turned a tragedy into a movement that has helped hundreds of people. Lily, now a 15-year-old teenager with dreams of studying law and social justice, added her own toast. And for the people who are still suffering in silence, may they find their voice, may they find their strength, may they know they are not alone. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but they were tears of gratitude, not pain. That night, after everyone left, Lily and I sat in the garden under the old oak tree, exactly where she had been that rainy night years ago, escaping the terror in her own house. "You know what is the strangest thing?" Lily said, looking at the stars. "Sometimes I almost appreciate that all that happened." "Why?" I asked, surprised. "Because it showed me what we are made of. It showed me that real love fights, that real family protects each other, and it gave me a life with you that I never would have fully appreciated if I hadn't seen how close we were to losing it all." I hugged her, this extraordinary young woman who had grown up too fast but had blossomed beautifully anyway. "I appreciate it too," I admitted. "Not the pain, not the trauma, but the clarity it brought, the strength we discovered, the wonderful people who entered our lives." "Do you think we will ever stop talking about this?" Lily asked. "Probably not. It is part of our story. But it no longer defines our story. Now it is just a chapter in a much longer book about 2 women who refused to be destroyed." Lily smiled. "I like that book. How does it end?" "We are still writing it," I replied. "But I can promise you this. It ends with us being happy, healthy, strong, and surrounded by people who really love us. Everything else is just details." We stayed there until the stars filled the sky, 2 survivors who had saved each other, now living the life they almost stole from us. And somewhere, in a prison cell, Harper carried the weight of her decisions. In a different city, Julian worked a job he hated, his brilliant career reduced to ashes by his own corruption. But us? We were here, free, together, invincible. And that, in the end, was the best revenge. Living well, loving deeply, and turning our scars into wisdom we could share with others. Justice was not only done in that courtroom years ago, it was done every day. We chose happiness over bitterness, growth over resentment, love over fear. That was our true victory, and no one, ever, could take that away from us.